There were, three ladies that, basically, and they were all NAACP members, as I recall. And in essence, they felt that it was time for the city to integrate. And again, this is the oral history. Time for the city to integrate. And from what I understand, they met with the Manassas Chamber of Commerce and basically petitioned the Chamber of Commerce to integrate the city of Manassas. It wasn't fair that things would be segregated and that African Americans could not, go and sit at the stool or at the lunch counter. And it is my understanding that without a lot of fanfare, the Chamber of Commerce agreed with those ladies, and the next day, Manassas was fully integrated, and it was clearly a. You would think, obviously, hopefully, people were acting on their good conscience. But the other piece is that the business community made a choice, and from that point on, it was an integrated town.
So maybe economics played a big role in changing.
I think economics very, very well could have played a major role in changing that.
Now, you told a story about how you almost single-handedly had an issue with the mascot at Jenny Dean School, and you had it changed. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I sure will. I shared a little earlier in the interview about the Manassas Regional School, which later became Jenny Dean School. And obviously, we know that when separate but equal was the law of the land, and legislation was going through to deal with Brown versus the Board of Education. It just happened that the Prince William County School Board built Jenny Dean, a brand new high school, in 1955. And Jenny Dean High School was the school for African American youth in Prince William County at that time. Of course, Fairfax and the other places had their own schools. But Jenny Dean High School was the African American high school. After integration, they turned Jenny Dean into a middle school, and I had the opportunity to attend Jenny Dean as a sixth grader. When I arrived at Jenny Dean, I learned that the mascot, and when it was Jenny Dean, the black high school, it was the mascot was the Jenny Dean Bulldogs. I arrived at Jenny Dean in middle school, and all of a sudden, the mascot was the Jenny Dean Rebels. Having a history of civil rights, even as a sixth grader, with my parents both being active in the NAACP in a period of time when you see the all the marches going on throughout the South and things changing throughout the country, I felt compelled to address the issue with that mascot. It did not sit well with me, and I give the administration at the school a lot of credit. I think what we call today would be called positive youth development, because they helped channel my energy in the right way. The principal, Mr. Daly, assistant principal was Mr. Russell Fincham, a well-known African-American educator in Manassas. And I approached him about changing the name of the school. But I will back up and digress and say, prior to that, I had the conversation with my parents. And they asked how I was going to handle the situation, and I told them that I was going to start a protest to protest that name. And again, the administration accommodated me. And the long story out of that is that we did have a naming contest, and the name of that mascot was changed to the Jenny Dean Blazers, and remained the Blazers until the city of Manassas made Jenny Dean Elementary School, and they started their own mascot as elementary school.
Just for historical context, tell us who Jenny Dean was and why naming Jenny Dean, having a mascot Jenny Dean Rebels, was so inappropriate.
So Miss Jenny Dean was Prince William County resident, particularly on the western end, the Gainesville district area of Prince William County, and she was committed to education and educating African American students throughout the county. Ms. Jenny Dean really reached out to philanthropists across the country and received money to establish Jenny Dean School to educate the black community. I think she received money from the Carnegies and started the Manassas Industrial School. I understand that actually Frederick Douglass gave one of the inaugural speeches at the Manassas Regional Industrial School that Jenny Dean founded. So she is just a great historic person in Prince William County.
So you did your homework, and that's why having the rebel as your mascot didn't sit well with you, huh?
Exactly right. Yeah, that didn't sit well. And again, seeing the civil rights movement and the Confederate flag flying and the opposition and the Klan using the Confederate flag, that wasn't sitting well. So we thought it was important to have a mascot that we all could be proud of.
So let's talk a little bit about your parents and their activism, their role in the NAACP and civil rights. What kind of things were they involved in, and what kind of things were you exposed to as a youth?
Well, I would say my parents have always been active members of the NAACP. The NAACP, obviously, the largest and oldest civil rights organization in the country, and really the organization that was really pushing a lot of the changes in the laws. I mean, we're all very familiar with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Dr. King and the work that the Southern Christian Leadership Conference did, and obviously the Urban League. But my dad served as membership chairman for the NAACP for quite a few years. Later on, I became president, and he served as membership chair under me as president. My mother served as education committee chair. But they were active NAACP members and would address any kind of issue that came up as it related to human and civil rights in Prince William County. And to be quite honest, never did it without fear. A lot of backbone, strong people for justice, and having grown up in a household like that made it really easy for me to be committed to human and civil rights. I can recall my dad having conversations with my uncles, and basically at a time when there was separate but equal and segregated bathrooms, and my dad saying there's no such thing as separate but equal. I'm just as good as anyone else. And the debate would be, well, that's the law. Well, there's no such law that would make me unequal to anyone else. So they were very strong. Very strong people, and my dad today is 87, be turning 88, and he continues to be very strong.
Now, your dad worked at a gas station on Route 1.
Yes.
Tell us about being the night manager, bathrooms not having segregated signs on them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and in talking with him, as we all know. Prior to I-95, Route 1 was the major highway north to south from Maine to Florida. So you had people, traveling Route 1 all times of days and nights. Well, there was a Shell station on Route 1 that was owned by a local gentleman from Dumfries, a white gentleman by the name of Harvey Watson, and I can remember my dad always saying, that Harvey never was concerned about the color of the person. He was more concerned about the color of the money, green. So with that being said, he actually made my dad, the night manager of the Shell station in the 40s. And that was a time, when African Americans were not, quote unquote, responsible enough to handle leadership, one, and two, to handle money. But he felt my dad was the best person for the job, and there were many times when customers, and of course that was before self-service, so you actually got served at the gas station. But there were many times when customers would pull up to buy gas, and the white attendants would be filling up the cars, and the white customers would say to them, would give them the money, and they basically said they couldn't take it. They had to give it to Porter because he was the manager, and the shock that he would see on people's face that this black man in the 40s was the man who was over top that service station at night was quite unique.
Do you think maybe because Route 1 had Fort Belvoir and Quantico Marine Base, because of that military presence, do you think that made it a little less segregated, perhaps?
Yeah. Well, yes, I think so. I think one of the things, and it probably is somewhat that way, because of the military presence. I think one of the things, and one of the things, and it probably is somewhat that way, because of the military presence. I think one of the things, and it probably is somewhat that way, because of the military presence. I think one of the things, and it probably is somewhat that way, because of the military presence. I think one of the things, and it probably is somewhat that way, because of the military presence. I think one of the things, and today in 2014, but it used to be a real split between East and Western Prince William County. Eastern Prince William County was always seen to be more progressive and a faster lifestyle than the western part of the county. And it was just kind of a split across the county, just about mid-county from Independent Hill, was western part. But Dumfries, Triangle, Woodbridge, Occoquan, that area, obviously the eastern end. And in speaking with my dad, they talked about things really not being, there were things that were segregated by law, but my dad always talked about how he and the white families from the community all knew each other. They all knew each other. My dad often said that at my grandmother's table, there were just as many whites as blacks, his family sitting at the table, that they did that. But the Dumfries area, I think, was somewhat unique, that Route 1 area, because of the military presence. So you had people who were exposed to different things from all over the country. So I think that was a major piece of really a place not being so isolated and if I can use the term, backwards. I think they were more progressive because of the military influence along Route 1.
Right. Did your parents ever have any problems with voting? Did your parents vote? I assume they did. And did they have any problems?
Yes, my parents were active and registered voters. They never encountered any problems voting in